My name is Peter Kirkham. I'm a former police officer in the Metropolitan Police, and I'm now a commentator on policing issues. For some time now, my colleagues and I have been raising concerns about the cuts to policing that the successive governments from 2010 onwards have been making. We've been told, in no uncertain terms, that we're scaremongering, that we're crying wolf. Well, we are not crying wolf. We were not crying wolf. We were pointing out there was a wolf coming, and several of those wolves are now here. They are savaging the police service, and they are causing a crisis in policing which is genuine and which is deepening every day. Crime is beginning to rise, just as we said it would. Police numbers are down to 1985 levels, 20,000 officers fewer than there were in 2010. That's about 15% of the total strength, and the same number again of police staff and police community support officers. That means that neighbourhood policing will disappear, is disappearing, just as we've said it would. That response times will start to rise, just as we said they would. That more and more crimes will go uninvestigated, just as we said they would. Officers are being burned out across the country. They're working ever longer tours of duty, more and more rest days cancelled, ridiculously unachievable workloads, stress and stress-related ill health absence is through the roof, just as we said it would be. Morale is through the floor. More and more officers are deciding they cannot take it anymore. Officers are leaving in mid-service in ever-increasing numbers, to the point where if you want to find an experienced police officer in the vicinity of Victoria Station in London, you're far better off looking in the driver's cab of the 9:38 semi-fast service from Haywards Heath than you are looking on the streets outside. Loads of experienced Metropolitan Police officers have left in mid-service and are now train drivers. We were not crying wolf. We are not crying wolf. There is a crisis in policing. All the indicators are pointing in that direction. We are witnessing a slow motion collapse of the police service in this country. And yet the only people that seem not to be able to see that are the government. They rely on spin. They rely on their liars for hire who come up with fictitious reports that misrepresent the truth. They come up with announcements by people who have got an axe to grind. Today a report has come out supposedly from the Independent Institute for Fiscal Studies that says they can't find any evidence yet of the cuts and the reduced funding having any what they call deleterious effect on outputs. Well, they can't have looked very hard, and I don't suppose they will have looked very hard, because when we look very hard we find that the author isn't independent at all. It's someone who was part of Tom Windsor's panel that set up right from the very start the whole framework of cuts and changes to the police service. Talk about marking your own homework. Maybe it's just the graphs and pie charts they can find no evidence in, but if they look and go and ask officers, they will find there are lots of human impacts. Officers off sick, officers' families falling apart, people whose lives are being taken over by a constant grindstone of work, work, work. And yet they continue to do it. They continue to come in every day, even though they are tired to their bones. They run towards danger when others are running away, and whilst they've got ever fewer colleagues running towards danger with them. Their dedication and their vocation is exemplary. They have my heartfelt gratitude and my thanks. They have the heartfelt gratitude and thanks of the vast majority of ordinary people in this country who actually see and look at what is going on. One would expect that they would have the gratitude of the government, but they don't. Not only do the government not value the police officers they've got, at every opportunity they spend their time undermining them, demeaning them. They have been treated with disdain and contempt from day one when Theresa May took over as Home Secretary. I don't know what it is about Theresa May, but she does not like the police service, and she has made that perfectly plain over the last 7 years. This can't go on. There will be consequences. The Police Federation a couple of years ago launched a brilliant campaign called Cuts Have Consequences. Look for that hashtag. You may find a film relevant to your area. It highlighted how the cuts at that time were going to impact on policing services. Things have got worse. In Manchester, the police have told the public not to ring them unless it's a real emergency because they cannot deal with routine demand from time to time. In Norfolk, there are insufficient officers on response duty to deal with a relatively small crowd running amok in Cromer of a weekend. There's no resilience. There's no contingency resources. The Chief Constable of Bedfordshire has actually come out last weekend and said that he cannot keep the people of Bedfordshire safe with the resources he has, and, more damning still, that ministers do not listen. There is a crisis in policing. We were not crying wolf. We are not crying wolf. We are pointing out what is and will happen. The government talk of the need for businesses to make more productivity-wise to get us out of austerity. All the people talking about Brexit are talking about how well all UK businesses have to do, how everybody has to do that little bit better, how everybody needs to be that little bit more productive. Well, how is that going to work if the streets are ridden with crime, if people don't feel safe in their own homes, if businesses are constantly being preyed upon by criminals? Go and ask any business about the support they get from the police around retail theft, around fraud, around anything else that affects them. And you will find it was never very good. They always came second to individual victims. But now it is appalling. They don't even bother calling the police, for the most part. This government, and Theresa May personally, have been criminally negligent with public safety. If only we knew, we could probably trace some of the things that have happened back to the absence of policing. I'm certainly aware of individual cases where there has been a slower or non-existent police response to incidents that simply wouldn't have happened in 2010, and where people have ended up dead or injured. I cannot stress this enough. The government are being criminally negligent with the safety of the public. We were not crying wolf. We are not crying wolf. The wolves are at the door of the police service, and there is a crisis in policing which is deepening every day. Today, I publicly launched True Blue Line UK. This project, crowdfunded by police officers and police supporters and those that are concerned about policing in this country, will hopefully provide a voice explaining what frontline officers know is going on, that avoids the spin that the politicians and the media provide, that tells you the truth about UK policing. If you are concerned about the safety of yourselves, your families, your children, your communities, then you need to find out what is happening with policing in your area. Find out how many there are now compared to 2010. Find out the caseloads that they are carrying. Find out when they last had a day off. And if you're not happy, if you don't think that they are providing the police service you want, then tell your local councillors. Tell your MPs. Tell the local media. Tell the national media. Until you, the public, campaign to have your policing service reinstated to what it was in 2010, you and your families, I am afraid, will be in more danger than you need to be. And that is entirely due to the criminal negligence of this government and Theresa May personally.